Well, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to all of you all around the world. My name is Alan O'Reilly, and I am the chairman for the Young Chefs Committee for Development for Worldchefs. And it's our pleasure today to represent again and deliver another amazing webinar. We have over 600 participants from around the world, and we're very excited today to introduce the distinguished Toastmaster, Mr. Shaun Payen. And Shaun's going to deliver an amazing talk today about communication and about overcoming your fear about public speaking. And he is a qualified lawyer. He spent 5 years in the UK studying subjects of how to communicate. And I'm very interested to hear how and what he came up with for that and what he learned out of those 5 years. Also, he's been awarded many times, and in fact, over 40 awards for speaking around the world and certainly throughout the Indian Ocean. Where he's from is in Mauritius, and I'm sure it's going to be an incredible and interactive talk. He's going to interact with some of our ambassadors today. And once again, I'd just like to welcome everybody. It's great to have you all here, and so exciting that we have so many of them. Shaun, welcome, and we're really looking forward to hearing your talk today.
Thank you very much for this amazing introduction, Alan. It's a real pleasure to be here indeed. Right. Excellent. Thank you everyone for this amazing introduction. And I'd like to ask you just a simple question before we start. Raise your hand if you actually hate delivering presentations. All right, I can see a few hands up already. Right, now, to be fair, what are the various symptoms that you have whenever you have to stand up to deliver a speech? Does your heart rate quicken at times? Do you shake a little bit? Do you have butterflies in your stomach? Well, if you believe to suffer from any of these symptoms, I've got some great news for you. You are absolutely normal. In fact, experiencing the fear of public speaking is one of the most common fears in the world. Did you know that public speaking is actually the #1 fear in the world? Even more than death. Therefore, if you are going at a funeral, you are better off in the coffin than the one delivering the speech. Friends, my name is Shaun Payen, and I'm really looking forward to share my expertise with respect to public speaking to you all watching from all around the world. The messages are popping in, and I'm absolutely loving that enthusiasm that you all have. Now, with respect to one of the things that a lot of people fear about public speaking, I actually boiled them down in a couple of scenarios. It's first of all the fear of having a blank. The fear of the judgment of people. What will people actually think about me when I'm delivering my presentations here and there? What if I'm appearing foolish in front of a crowd? All these are the various feelings and symptoms that you will have whenever you have to come forward to deliver a speech. Now, I remember I was delivering a presentation at a hotel. It was 11 years ago, I guess. And when I was at the hotel, someone asked me a question, and for the first time in my life, I was asked a question on public speaking I didn't have an answer to. Now, let me put that question into perspective. We are a group of, let's say, 10 friends. We go to a restaurant, we eat, we drink, we chat with each other, we have an amazing time. And at one point, I asked, Jasper to stand up and deliver a speech in front of the same 10 people he's been speaking to, and he'll be very unwilling to do so. Why is that? And it bothered me so much that I went to see a therapist, a psychologist specialized in social behavior in the UK, to give me an answer on the fear of public speaking. A very fruitful meeting where that person compared the fear of public speaking to that of going to a party where you don't know a lot of people. What do you do when you go to a party where you don't know a lot of people? You stand in the corner like this, asking yourself thousands of questions. What are people thinking about me? Am I being all right? Why is no one speaking to me? Should I go and speak to them? Why am I sweating so much? Me, I. This sort of selfish approach questions that we ask ourselves whenever we're confronted with an audience. And what we tell people who suffer from these forms of social anxiety is not to think about themselves. But is it the right thing to say? For instance, Alan, if I tell you don't think about yourself, you will be thinking about yourself. Lynn, for instance, if I tell you don't think of a blue elephant, in your brain right now, it's a blue elephant going on in a loop. So yes, you shouldn't be thinking about yourself, but that's not what we should be telling you. What I tell my candidates normally to do in order to overcome the fear of public speaking, it's to switch their focus. And you switch your focus to the content of your speech. Right now, with all due respect to everyone, I don't really care what you guys think about me. And by not caring, I am able to focus on so many other aspects of public speaking. How can I use my voice to create an impact? How can I reduce the sound of my voice to create suspense, to create mystery? How can I use my stage movement to keep your eyes moving? And how can I use my eye contact with the camera in order to create a connection with you people? All these techniques that we are eventually going to learn in this seminar, and also when I will be at the Congress very soon. So yes, what we tell people, instead of telling them instead of thinking of what people will be thinking about you, next time you're about to deliver a speech, is think of, what can I teach people new today? This is what I call the primary school teacher theory. Why did I call it as such? Do you think that the primary school teacher teaching 8-year-old kids, do you think that she really cares of what the students think of her presentation skills? Not really. She is here to complete a syllabus, and by focusing on that syllabus, she's able to completely negate the fear of public speaking. So next time you're about to deliver a speech, adopt that mindset. Instead of thinking of what people will be thinking about you, think of what you can teach people new instead. But that's very theoretical in nature. Even with that in mind, I'm pretty sure if I ask someone to stand up and deliver a speech confidently, it will probably not sound very appealing, and you will still feel a little bit of stress, which is why I don't believe in the theory of public speaking. Because no matter how many tips I have for you, no matter how many suggestions I have for you, there is no greater way to overcome the fear of public speaking than to practice. Here are the 7 P's of public speaking. I am going to write them here. I'm not sure if you can, yes, you can read them. So P, 2, 3, 4. Right. If I give you a speech to deliver, you're going to have to start with a plan. Afterwards, you need to start to prepare. Then you need to polish that speech. And then you start to practice. You practice again, and finally, you present your speech. Now, 11 years ago, I won a competition, and when you won that competition, you had the honor of representing your country at the International Public Speaking Competition in London. I was super excited for that competition. Now, 2 weeks prior to my departure, I was at the practicing stage of my speech. And if I told you how many times I practiced my speech per day, you won't actually believe me. I practice my speech 75 times a day. Now, I'm not telling you to practice your speeches 75 times a day, people. You will see it will come with experience as you deliver. But why did I practice my speech so much? See, friends, I'm pretty sure most of you must have delivered a speech at one point in your life. Now, have you ever realized that for the first minute of that speech, you feel a certain fear inside of you, a fear that sometimes prevents you from even saying a word? Well, what happens, especially for the first minute of your speech? For the first minute of your speech, you have the fear of having a blank, which is at its peak, and you have the fear of the judgment of people, which is also at its peak. whilst your confidence level is at its lowest. Now, if you know your speech really well, or if you know your speech even by heart and you've mastered that, you're completely negating the fear of having a blank, and you can only focus on the fear of the judgment of people, which will go down as your confidence level rises throughout the speech. All right, so indeed, the most important tip I want to give you people whenever you're confronted with delivering speeches and overcoming the fear, it's to practice. Unfortunately, there are no sort of magic pills I would give you all in order to overcome the fear of public speaking, but those two main techniques, practice and practice and practice, and afterwards you will see how switching your focus to indeed make your mindset in such a way where you are here to show the audience an opportunity, where you're given an opportunity to share your expertise with the audience. For instance, nowadays, I don't really fear public speaking. And why? Even if I'm in a stadium of, let's say, 1,000 people, the fear will not be as much. Why? Because instead of saying, oh my gosh, what are those 1,000 people, what are those people thinking about me? What I'm thinking of is, oh my gosh, I'm having an opportunity to share my ideas with these people. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. All right. Now that's when I talk about practice, I'm not only talking about practicing a prepared speech, because how are you going to prepare for an impromptu speech? You cannot really prepare for an impromptu speech, and we're going to tackle that in a couple of seconds. What I mean when I talk about practice, it's to practice the art of public speaking as much as you can. For instance, in my 5-week masterclass that I deliver in Mauritius, I give my candidates over 25 opportunities to stand up and speak. And you will see that when they come forward on the first week, they all have that fear. They're a little bit hesitant to come in front of the crowd to deliver their speeches here and there. And because of momentum, because of practice, because of constantly coming forward and delivering their speeches, they are actually able to deliver in a more confident and poised manner. Now, coming back to impromptu speeches. Now, impromptu speeches may happen at any point in our lives. You are a chef, you are called by someone, you're called by someone to explain your dish. You might be required to actually deliver a sort of speech behind that. Now, there are certain sort of ingenious ways of presenting stuff, of presenting your dish, of presenting an impromptu speech that I'd like to share with you right now. However, the main problem that we have whenever we're confronted with an impromptu speech is that we don't know how to really structure our thoughts. Where should I start? What should I be doing next? What comes next here and there? Which is why I have designed a special sort of structure that you might want to note down, right? You have, and that structure and that technique that I'd like to share with you is called the Rio technique, right? This is the most basic structure you want to adopt whenever you are confronted with an impromptu speech, for instance, right? For instance, if I ask you a question right now, what are your views on euthanasia? You will start by giving your opinion. Euthanasia means mercy killing. Let's say you are suffering from stage 4 cancer and there is absolutely no chance of survival. We can give you an injection for you to pass away with dignity, right? And not suffer too much. It's not legal in Mauritius. In your countries, probably or probably not. Now, if I ask you a question, what are your views on this practice, on euthanasia? You will start by giving your opinion. I am against euthanasia. That is my opinion, but do I want to stop here? No, I need to come forward and add bones to my structure. And this is why afterwards I will be giving my reasoning. Why are you afraid? Why are you against euthanasia? I am against euthanasia because I believe that life is precious and should be preserved at all costs. This is my reasoning. Now, do I want to stop here or do I want to add a few spices to my delivery of that performance? And this is why I will be emphasizing on the most important part of this structure, which is examples. Giving examples to your audience. Now, there is a hierarchy that I came forward with that touches the heart of an audience the most. You've got at the bottom end facts and statistics. A little higher up, you've got stories. But there is nothing that will touch your heart more than a personal story. That situation, I will be saying, my mother was diagnosed with terminal stage cancer, and the doctors didn't give her any hope for survival. And they even advised us to go for euthanasia. But we didn't believe in what they said. We still had hope, and we still had hope for her survival. So after countless chemotherapy sessions, countless prayers, and a final surgery, my mother is standing in this room looking more beautiful than ever. So friends, never let a piece of advice come between you and your life. Never let a needle come between you and your life. Always believe that there is hope and that there is hope for survival. So friends, this is why I am against euthanasia. What did I do here? I restate my opinion once again. Right? So you see, I start, whenever you're confronted with an impromptu question and someone asks you a question on the spot, instead of panicking and saying, yeah, what should I do? What should I say? Where should I have my mind at? Have this structure in mind. Okay, client asked me a question. What is my opinion about that question? Opinion is that. Then the reason, why did you say that your opinion is that? And then you support it with an example. That example can be a fact, a story, but there is nothing that will touch the heart of the audience more than a personal story or an anecdote, as you want to call it. Right? Now there is something that I kind of emphasize on, that I value the most whenever I ask impromptu questions to my candidates, for instance. And that very, very important element I put forward is originality. I hate mainstream answers. And by being original, you're fostering your brain to analyze and to critically analyze situations in an original manner. For instance, I still remember in 2017, Miss India won the Miss World Beauty pageant, for instance, and she was asked a question at the international level, and that question was, what is the best job in the world? While a lot of people would be saying a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, she came forward and said that the best job in the world is to be a mother, which I thought was quite original as well. I was once chairing an impromptu speech contest, and I asked the candidates a question. If you had the power to cure a disease in the world, what disease would you cure and why? Now, I asked, in my classes, I always, if I have 10 students in class, for instance, you can be sure that 8 candidates out of 10 will be saying, I would like to cure cancer. Post-COVID, it was like COVID and cancer. But indeed, what I'm looking for is an answer that will make you stand out, an answer that will make you think outside the box. And that answer could be, I would like to cure the evilness in the minds of people, greed, hatred, jealousy, those diseases that rot our society to the bone. So what I'm looking for, as you can see, is not an actual disease that I'm looking for. It's an ideology that can make you appear as someone who is here to blow everyone's mind. And that's what I want to hear from you, and you have the ability to do so. All right, so we are, Lynn told me earlier on that we have a couple of volunteers to have a small, well, we're going to have a small challenge right now, a small exercise that we are going to do, where I'm going to call on stage a couple of candidates, 2 candidates, I believe, and they will have to answer an impromptu question using that Oreo technique as far as they can, and we are going to see how we are going to do that. So, Lynn, could you, who will be the first person? Is that Sana, as if I can see clearly right now, and Anne? Excellent. Right. So I'm going to ask the first question to Sana, who will be who can turn her microphone on and her video as well. Lovely. Sana, so I'm going to ask you a question, and you will have to answer that with the Oreo approach. So Sana, what would you do if you had? What would you do if you won $10 million? What would you do if you won $10 million? You got 1 to 2 minutes to tackle that question, Sana. Best of luck.
Okay, I'll not take that much of time, I guess. I have my answer ready. Hello, Alan. So I think if I have that much of money, I would definitely like to go for something which can help global warming and something which can bring back life to this planet, because this planet is really struggling right now, I guess, and we all have to switch towards sustainability, and we all should focus on how we can encourage our kids and everyone to take ways of and saving energy and using products which are safe for environment. So that's my answer.
Fantastic. A round of applause for Sana for taking up that challenge and really delivering a very powerful answer about global warming here and there. I'm really impressed with that answer, Sana. It was a brilliant one. Now let us analyze a little bit more about the Oreo technique that you've been tackling. So whilst you had an excellent opinion about the issue, I'm gonna donate to causes such as global warming here and there because of this and that. I would have liked to know a little bit more as to what are you doing in order to fight climate change? What are you doing to be more sustainable and apply those skills to your everyday life? By giving me a concrete anecdote, a personal story, you can eventually touch the hearts of the audience even more, and that's something you might want to work on. But other than this, amazing question, amazing answer, Sana. Now, friends, this is what I call a vague question. What is a vague question? A vague question is a question with numerous possibilities. There are so many things you could do with $10 million. You can buy a house, you can buy a car, you can do this, you can do whatever you want. But whenever you're asked such a question and you've got only a limited amount of time to convince the person in front of you, I want you to focus on only one point. For instance, if I want $10 million, I would give the entirety of my $10 million to my father. Because what he did for me on the 10th of August 2003 will always stay in my mind. Now, you want to know what happened on the 10th of August 2003, right? You see how I build that suspense around the date. Now, friends, if ever you're all here or if you're following live at the Congress, I will be delivering my favorite educational session, which will be about how to make your speeches less boring. And I'm going to show you exactly how to start with a bang to create an impact as soon as you begin. So on the 10th of August 2003, I was in my room, impatiently waiting for my father to get back home. And as I saw him coming through the windows, I saw that his hands were filled with mud. His nails were filled with dirt. And as I went down to greet him, I overheard a conversation he had with my mother. And he said with a trembling voice, "Honey, been working all day. Look how dirty my hands are, but I haven't been paid. So honey, I cannot afford to eat today, but please take my share and give it to my son." From that moment, I said to myself that no matter how successful I became in my life, I would always be grateful to what my father did on that day, which is why I would give the entirety of my sum of money to my father. Right? You see how I followed the Oreo approach. I start with my opinion, then I move to my reasoning, then I give my example about the personal story that I just talked about, and then I restate my opinion again to back up my claim. Right? So this is about the first question, right? What would you do if you won $10 million? Now I'm going to ask Anne. Yes, Anne, and the second question that I have for you today. And that question is, if you could choose to go to a place, where would you choose to go and why? If you could choose to go to a place, where would you choose to go and why? Anne. I cannot hear you, Anne.
Yeah, I think you're still on mute, Anne. There you go. No, that didn't work.
No. Right. So can somebody else probably answer? Sana, would you like to have a second go about that?
Okay, now I'll follow all the steps you have said.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So if I have a chance to go somewhere, I definitely would like to go back to my village. I basically is from a farmer family, and we don't get time to visit my village, which is quite far even from my home in India. And we were very attached to that place. We had great memories when we were kid. My father used to take us for summer vacations every year. But after we went to college, we lost touch with that place. And my father is still attached to that place. He misses it a lot. But because of health issues, he cannot travel that much. So I would definitely like to go to that place and spend some good quality time, because it has a lot of memories. And means I have learned a lot of food from there. So yeah, it's definitely a place where I would like to go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for this, Sana. Much better. A lot of depth and a lot of emotions carried with respect to your village here and there, where you explain the hardships of not being able to be there here and there, and I absolutely loved it. Now, as amazing as that answer was, there are a couple of things you can add to spice it up a little bit more. For instance, when you talk about the memories that you have there, I would have liked you to tell me a little bit more about the deepest memories that you shared with the time spent at the village, with the time spent on the farm here and there. So those are the things, the sort of proximity that you can, build with the village is something you might want to tell us about. So amazing story, but don't be afraid to open up a little bit more and share your deepest emotions and memories from that place. Fantastic. Right? Excellent, Sana. Now, whenever you're asked such a question, in order to think critically, how do you answer such a question? How to think outside the box? Now, I want you to analyze the keyword of the question. What is the keyword of the question? If you could choose to go to a place, where would you choose to go and why? Now, the keyword is place. Now, if I asked everyone, they would be giving me beautiful countries here and there. But what I'm looking for is, how are you able to analyze the word place? Why should we limit place to being a physical place? If I could choose to go to a place, I would go to that place that relieves me of all the stress in the world and soothes the pressure of everyday life, and that is in my grandmother's arms. And then you elaborate in the example. My grandmother and I are very close to each other. I still remember the day when I had to stay at her place because my father and mother were working. And we shared so many deep memories of playing dominoes and spending such an amazing time together, that if I had the chance to just go back in her arms when I was feeling low, when I was feeling sad, I would definitely go there. So again, you can follow that structure, be emotional, and think outside the box when tackling those questions. All right, so this is about the impromptu questions, people, how you need to follow the Oreo approach. Do not forget, in the example segment, don't forget to include a personal story to deliver your performance. Now, I know a lot of things, when I was watching a couple of culinary shows here and there, when people present their plates, there's always a personal story attached to the beauty of that plate. And you might want to share the emotions when you are doing so in competitions or wherever you may be. So that's something you might want to include as well, right? Now, friends, in order, let's move to the next point of this seminar, of this webinar, if I may. COVID-19 has had an impact on each and every one of us. And indeed, public speaking has not been spared. We have seen that we're now shifting a little bit more to delivering speeches online, like we are doing right now on Zoom and on Microsoft Teams, etc. And therefore, it's absolutely crucial for us to be able to adapt to those sorts of situations. Now, indeed, how do we need to tackle those situations? Is to learn how we can create the impact online. You will understand that delivering a face-to-face presentation will clearly have a better impact than an online presentation. However, we need to know the tips and techniques that we can use in order to recreate the same impact online. All right? Now, excellent. So I would like to share a couple of tips with you in order to make your webinars, your Zoom interactions here and there a little bit more lively and a little bit more impactful in your delivery. The first thing you need to know is, where should I put my camera, right? Where should it be placed? Should I be looking down? Should it be up? No. First thing you need to know about placing the camera is that it should always be at eye level, right? Right now, my camera is at eye level. You don't want to be putting it down, because if you look down, it might give the impression that you are looking down on the audience, and it might also be creating a sort of double chin here. Now, I'm not fat shaming whatsoever, but you don't want to draw attention to superfluous details of your body, which is why you always want to keep it at eye level. You want to keep it at eye level so as to so that we can eventually, so that you can consider the audience to be at an equal footing as you would be normally. So that's something you might want to use. Always put your camera at eye level. The next thing you need to know about delivering a speech on Zoom is, what should I be able to see as a speaker? As a speaker, I need to be able to see my hands at rest, right? So up to the forearms here, right? And then making effective gestures to communicate your point, which I'm going to share with the young chefs eventually in Abu Dhabi. So, and I need to see a clearly well-lit face. The thing about a clearly well-lit face, why do we ask a clearly well-lit face? Because, see friends, one of the most powerful body language techniques that one can use in a face-to-face meeting is movement on stage, because you can add power to your delivery by moving left and right on the stage with the proper techniques, of course. However, on a face-to-face or with an online delivery, you cannot be moving on stage because there is no area to occupy. The only area you have to occupy is the screen in front of you. So movement on stage is not available. Therefore, you've got to make use of all the other body language techniques that we are going to learn at the Young Chefs Forum, such as gestures, facial expressions, posture, eye contact. All these are things that we need to master. Therefore, we need to, since we don't have movement on stage, we need to make use of all the available resources, and that's facial expressions. Whenever we are delivering speeches here, and I see myself on the camera right now, I see myself really clear with no sorts of bugs here and there. However, I don't know how you may see me. Connections may differ. Some countries may have, better connections here and there. So indeed, we need to be able to adapt to it. Having a well-lit face helps you to really emphasize on that facial expression aspect and can make you more appealing to the audience. One way in which you can do that is to have a sort of, you can bring ring lights, right? The ring lights that TikTokers use, you know, the infinity challenge here and there. So you might want to use those ring lights to project light on your face. If not, a table lamp is enough. The next thing you need to understand is with respect to the second, to argue the most important element of body language, and that is eye contact, right? It is the eye contact. So you've got to be able to look at people in the eyes to create a connection with the audience. However, since my audience is online, I cannot be looking at the screen of my laptop. I will have to look at the camera. Because when I'll be looking at the camera or slightly below the camera, I will be able to effectively reciprocate and recreate the effect it would have if I was delivering a speech in front of you all. So I'm looking at the camera right now. When you're looking at the screen, you see me. At the screen, you see me actually looking at you in the eyes. And this is the effect that I want to create with respect to delivering such a speech. The next thing you need to know about delivering a speech on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams or wherever you want to deliver, it's about your virtual backgrounds. A lot of people tell me, Shaun, what is your position on virtual backgrounds? And I tell them, you know what, when you're delivering a speech, a normal one, let's say you got to deliver a meeting, and when you deliver speeches in meetings, in business meetings here and there, where you can just sit down, it's absolutely fine. You can have a virtual background behind you, no worries at all. But when it comes to an actual presentation where you really need to emphasize, when you really need to deliver, where you really need to create an impact, if I may, you cannot really use a virtual background unless you have a green screen behind you, because your gestures will get muddled in the virtual background. You will see your sort of hand will disappear at one point, so it doesn't really create a pleasant look in the presentation as a whole. So one tip I give all my candidates: try to put your laptop against a wall, like this one, a plain wall like this one, which can give a very professional impression. Mine is against a glass board right now, so you might want to be doing that. Always try to always be against something. Don't always put your laptop when there's sort of nothing behind you, like I'm doing right now. Try to always be against something, and this is why I tell my candidates to stay behind a wall. Next thing. Bottles of alcohol here and there in the background. Always be cautious of what you have and on the background. Bottles here and there, underwears lying here and there. You don't want to be seeing that in any presentation. It doesn't really sound professional. Whenever you have to turn on your camera, you've got to be cautious with regards to the surrounding. And also, please, people, the golden rule, and one of the golden rules, if I may, please wear pants. Right? When you are delivering speeches online. I remember I was delivering a speech the other day. I was conducting an interview actually the other day, and I asked someone to switch on the light because I couldn't see him properly. He had a beautiful suit, beautiful shirt, and a lovely tie, but he stood up. And immediately you could see a pair of shorts, underwears here and there, not really professional. So you don't really know. In any professional interview you might be conducting online, if the person doesn't see you properly, he might be telling you to switch on something. If there is someone on the phone, you might just rush to pick up the phone here and there. And eventually we as members on the other side of the screen can see things, unpleasant things, if I may. So always try to be properly dressed whenever you're conducting whenever you're conducting an interview, or whenever you are, whenever you're conducting an interview, for instance. All right. So this is about the presentations, people. We have, so for today we've been covering in kind of brief details the various ways in which we can overcome the fear of public speaking. That is number one, to switch your focus. There is nothing more powerful, and to achieve that level, we need to practice to be able to master this. Master your first minute more than anywhere in the speech, as I told you previously, to build in confidence and avoid having the fear of having a blank. The next thing as well, you've got to be a for impromptu speeches. Whenever you're confronted with an impromptu situation, one of the most important things you want to do is follow the Oreo technique. Whenever you're confronted with one, always try to be as original as possible. You are chefs, you are creative people, and it's always amazing to listen to powerful stories from chefs. for a webinar, always try to look at the camera when you're delivering speeches, try to wear proper clothing, and the camera should always be at eye level. Try to have a light projecting on you. You can use a table lamp to do that in order for you to be more impactful as well, even when delivering a virtual seminar. All right, so this is about the presentation, people. It's been a massive pleasure. Do you guys have any questions now to about the presentation or about anything on public speaking, if I may?
Hi, Shaun. Perhaps I'll start first with a question.
Yes. Yeah.
So you were talking about answering questions just now.
Yeah.
With things that are original and interesting. What if at that point in time you can't think of something original? I'm thinking that it might cause someone to panic. Yeah. So what should one do at such a point in time?
Okay. Right. Jesper, I'm going to give you a controversial tip at that moment. There are two ways in which you can tackle an answer that you don't really know the answer, right? Tackle a question that you don't really know the answer. Number one, don't be afraid to say you don't know. I would rather have someone being honest upfront and telling me, I'm unaware of that question. If you could please give me some time just to do a couple of research, and I'll get back to you once I get all the facts that I need. I would rather have someone being so honest to me rather than someone's coming forward and giving me a completely sort of irrelevant question. Now, in my masterclasses, for instance, when people are kind of stuck, because it's a 5-week masterclass and 5 sessions, I tell them, well, don't hesitate to lie. This is not a debate where I'm not going to check the veracity or the truth of what you are saying. If you have to lie to create an impact that you know will not damage your reputation that much, go for it. But not in a debate, though. All right. So those are the 2 ways I tackle questions that I don't really know the answer. For instance, Jesper, did that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you, Shaun.
You're welcome, Jesper. Any other question?
Hi, Shaun. I have one question for you.
Yes, Anna.
Yeah, the question is that sometimes people have this perception about the language. They're not from natively, they don't have that language as their first language. And when they go in public, they get nervous because of the language which they're speaking, mainly pronunciation part. They find it little difficult to deliver it with that much of confidence. How can people improve that, and what can they do?
Excellent. Thank you very much for that question, Senna. To be fair, I'm not an English speaker, but it has now become my profession and my passion. Why and how? I'm going to take my own example, Senna. It's all a matter of practice. Of course, you will understand that, for instance, I don't know anything about Spanish. Okay, I don't know anything about the Spanish language. If you ask me to deliver an hour-long presentation in Spanish, I would certainly not have the level of expertise. So what helps us to actually be more confident in a language that is not actually your first language is to not only speak in English, but kind of change our lifestyle. Whenever you're watching a Netflix movie, for instance, or a movie in whatever, try to put it in English. Try to put it in the language that you're struggling with. Change your lifestyle. Try to read about it, because this will eventually help you to have a better vocabulary. Whenever you are, for instance, for people who are struggling in English, I tell them to watch movies. I don't always tell them to read. I don't read massively myself, but upon just listening to proper accent, proper pronunciation, and try to sort of recreate that same proper pronunciation, I was able to assimilate all that and be more impactful in our delivery. All right? Excellent. Does that answer your question, Senna?
Yeah, a bit actually. See, for you, it's a profession. For chefs, when they are in kitchen, we don't spend that much time, to be honest, on Netflix. But yes, suppose if some chef is going to explain a dish outside to a customer and is struggling with some part of it, means he doesn't know how exactly to say it or pronounce it. Probably he'll be more embarrassed to know saying that word rather than replacing it with some other substitute or which customer will not be able to understand. So
Excellent.
I mean, how chefs can deal with that challenge in front of customer, and how can they deliver that well?
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. First of all, you've got to know one thing, Senna. If you are in a position where you're called to explain your dish. My parents, by the way, used to have a restaurant in our locality, and normally the chef isn't, he or she is not really called to explain the dish. But in certain other restaurants, chefs are probably asked to do that. What I tell those chefs to do is to, despite being excellent at what they do when they are cooking, to also try to learn the language of and learn the exact dish of what they are cooking. Try to have one tip I would give you, Sana, is for every dish you have or you create or you make, for instance, just try to note it down in English, in the language that in the language that you know, and then try to retranslate that in English so that you get more acquainted to it. Because eventually, once you practice your dish, which is kind of your comfort zone, it is something you know, cooking here and there. So try to master that part. Try to create a story around that dish. Try to remember that story. And when you deliver that, because you will practice, you will know that dish really well. You wrote a story about it. Come forward and recreate that story, and you will see it will be way more interesting to listen to you, and you will be able to create the impact properly. Okay, Sana, did that answer your question?
Okay, yes, it does.
Try to write notes about every dish that you make so that it becomes easier for you to deliver in front of clients.
Certainly. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sana. Right. Excellent. I'm reading some questions right now. I had a question from Syed. Some areas of the world, like Pakistan, the profession of chef is considered as a lower level of occupation. How to reduce these kind of mindset and how to deal with it? Right. Excellent. First of all, out of the blue, I'm just telling you, I am not a mindset coach, but I will tell you from my expertise of a public speaker how you can deal with that. First of all, I want to tell you people, be irrespective of where you live, where you are, be proud of what you are doing. I don't consider any profession to be bad, to be downgrading, to be whatsoever. If you are good at something, if you are paid for it, you chose that profession because you know you are good about that. So why would you even care about what other people have to say about your profession? These people who consider your profession as a chef bad, right, or downgrading whatsoever, they are those people who need food on their plate every single day. So why would they consider such an important and integral part of their lives as being downgrading? Instead, Syed, you should be proud of yourself. You should be proud to do the job that you do, because without you, you would probably, those people would probably not have food on their plate. You would probably not have, you guys, the world chef, actually, you have the ability to put a smile on people's face. You are the reason why so many couples have been formed, because that's the place that they will go on a date. So why should you consider yourself as downgrading? Is something you shouldn't even think about. In my opinion, you're doing so well. So switch that mindset and take it. Consider your profession to be a noble one. Right? So I hope I answered your question, Syed. I am reading another question. Daniel, I think Daniel had a question. I can see you raising your hand. So Daniel, if you could just unmute your microphone. Daniel? Right. Okay. So I cannot hear Daniel. I will ask and I will reply to another question while Daniel unmutes his phone. So, how important is the voice tone in public speaking? Now, the tone is an element of what we call vocal variety. That's something we are going to tackle again at the Young Chefs Forum. So we are going to do that there. The tone is the tone is about the emotional content you carry in your voice. And therefore, if ever you want to include an emotion in your speech, you've got to be able to make use of the tone. Always remember, the audience will not always remember what they heard. The audience will not always remember what they saw, but the audience will always remember how you made them feel. And you need to know how to make them feel a certain form of emotion as you speak, and that is through the tone. As human beings, we can feel 6 forms of basic human emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, and disgust. So whenever you want to portray a happy scene, you don't want to be saying something like, "This was the happiest day of my life." No. However, if I come to you and I'm like, "This was the best day of my life," tears of joy were rolling down my father's cheeks as he looked at me with pride, I can clearly demonstrate that pride and that happiness in my voice. So the tone is absolutely crucial to convey emotions in our speeches, right? Excellent. So thank you for that. Next part. My question is, how can someone kill the act of inferiority complex while taking public speaking? Thank you very much for that question, Innocent. It's an amazing question that I have very often. So a lot of people, whenever they come to my classes, they always feel inferior. Because why? Because throughout their life, throughout their time, their self-esteem has been crushed. Their self-esteem has been damaged. And for that, you have got to be properly monitored. In my classes, for instance, what I always do, you will never hear me say something along the lines of, yes, your speech was the most boring speech I've ever heard in my life. You are the worst speaker I've ever heard whatsoever. No, now it's a matter of, the burden shifts back to me. I am the person you have entrusted to make you feel better about yourself. And this is how I will be able to make you feel more important. So many candidates I've had were victims of bullying, had issues at home. And indeed, you can understand that their self-esteem has been kind of affected by that. And it is my job to raise their self-esteem and to make them appear confident despite whatever problems they may go through. Right, so I will look at the other questions that we have. So I answered that one. What was your worst experience in public speaking and how did you overcome this? All right, thank you very much for that question. I'm actually laughing because it reminds me of my first experience as a public speaker. Do you think that actually that I was born a public speaker whatsoever? Absolutely not. I hated public speaking, and my hatred for public speaking was not only about me having to deliver speeches here and there. My hatred was also about listening to other people delivering speeches. Therefore, whenever my mum had to deliver a speech and she had to practice that at school, at home, she had to do this on the balcony. And indeed, she had to practice on the balcony. But then one day, I was in my room, minding my own business. That was like 15 years ago. And suddenly, my dad grabs my legs. My mum grabs my arms. They literally drag me down the stairway and they throw me in the car to take me to my first speech. And they even turn on the child lock in case I wanted to escape midway. And eventually, here I was, taken to my first speech. And I hated everything about it. Be it having to stand up, speaking in front of people I didn't know, speaking in English, which is a language I absolutely hated. I hated everything about it. But then I went to sit down and I said to myself, I'm never going to speak again. It's the worst experience of my life. But instead of telling to myself, okay, I'm going to give up right now, I've been taking every single opportunity presented to me, and I've been seizing those opportunities to stand up and speak. So in 15 years of experience now, after 15 years right now, not only am I being able to deliver a speech full of confidence, but I'm also able to share my expertise in public speaking. Right, so next delivery. Okay, so is there a difference between emotions and tones for delivering speech for older and younger audiences? It's not really about tone, it's more about the message that you have. A message for younger audience could be more about, could be about empowering them to make them cope with this life, and a message for the older audience is to still make them appear more confident and give them the tools to motivate the younger generation. So it's not really about tone, it's more about the message accompanying your speech. Right, next one. As a public speaker, what was the biggest challenge you had in public speaking, and what practice or techniques you did to overcome that? As I said previously, the first experience itself was the massive issue, but it's all an issue of mindset and how you can get rid of that mindset, to how you can shift your mindset into a more positive one, into someone who accepts who he is and who is able to challenge his mindset and be more impactful. So that's what I did. Next one. Right, so I think we've covered everything, people. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for being present. You've been an absolutely amazing audience, and I'm really looking forward to see you live and on the stage in Abu Dhabi in a couple of months. Now, so best of luck in everything you are doing. You all have my entire respect. My dad is indeed a chef himself, so I've been growing up in the chef world. So you have my entire respect, and I wish you all the very best in anything you are doing. If you've got any other questions on public speaking or anywhere, please don't hesitate to follow me on my Instagram, or to add me on my personal Facebook page or on my professional one, Shaun Payen. I'll be more than happy to help you.
Well, Shaun, thank you so much on behalf of Worldchefs and the Young Chef Committee. What an incredible talk. And I'm sure that everyone has learned so much. I've seen all the messages coming in from around the world with everyone congratulating you on your amazing talent. And I have to say, I love the enthusiasm. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person in Abu Dhabi. And we can talk a lot more when we're there, and so much looking forward to the skills that you're going to bring to the young chefs that are going to be there in Abu Dhabi. It'll be very interesting to see the difference in impact. And I also want to congratulate all the chefs who asked questions today from around the world. They're great questions. Really a great many came through, and although we weren't able to answer all of them, it was great to have your interaction today. Thank you to Lynn, and thank you to our panelists as well. It was a really great session, and we're very proud at Worldchefs to be able to bring this to everyone around the world. Have a wonderful day, and I'm here in the Bahamas, and I wish you all the very best from around the world. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Shaun.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you, everyone.